And welcome back to 120 Months. We are doing a month-by-month dive on MTV's 120 Minutes, and so far, it's been a lot of fun. We're in 1987. This episode, we're going to be talking about October, and I've got Keith Porterfield and Scott Mobley along with me. We each picked a song from that playlist in October of 87. We'll talk about that, and then we've got our favorite part of the episode, a mystery song at the end of the episode. They always turn out to be delightful in one way or the other, and this one is no exception, so we will get to that. But kicking things off this week is Mr. Scott Mobley.
So for this week, I chose Birds Fly, Whisper to a Scream by Icicle Works. I'm going to tell you a little bit about these guys. Honestly, there isn't a whole lot to tell, and probably not much reason to hunt them down, honestly, other than the fact, though, that this song, and possibly only this song, is one of those just definitive, undeniable 80s one-hit wonder songs that I think everybody should know. I mean, I can even say this is not even really my kind of thing, and you can probably tell from a lot of stuff I've chosen for this podcast, but man, do I love this song. So this band forms in 1980. Their main member is Ian McNabb. He's their singer, guitarist, keyboardist, and songwriter. Drummer Chris Sherrick, bassist Chris Lay. That band, in that incarnation, releases 4 albums from 84 to 88, and then break up in 89. Now, McNabb has, over the years, toured as Icicle Works, or the Icicle Works if you're in the U.S. That's one of those things I couldn't find why. Their albums were released in the United States as the Icicle Works and in the UK as Icicle Works. It's not one of those, there was already another band called that, so I couldn't find that, but that's one of those things. But, you know, he has formed different bands. Sometimes these guys get back together. Sometimes 2 of them get together, play an acoustic set, stuff like that, on and off over the years, but that's really about it. So their first album comes out in 84, and it's self-titled, and it yields 2 UK hits. The first one's called Love is a Wonderful Color, goes around to number 20 in the UK, and then this song, which also goes to around number 20 in the UK, and also number 20 in the US, and the album charts in the US at number 40, which is really high for an album that only has one great song on it, or one hit anyway, I should say. It's solely based on the success of this song. They get to a top 40 album in the US. So they have 3 more albums before they break up, a few minor chart appearances only in the UK, nothing higher than around number 50. But in the US, this is it. But man, this song, this is just one of the most perfect pop songs that I can think of. It's so catchy and so memorable and perfectly written, produced, and executed. I just think it's one of the greatest songs of this era. I would have bet money that this was in a movie. Not a John Hughes movie, because I know those soundtracks, but something like it, one of the teen sex comedies of the 80s, or a rom-com or something. I couldn't find that. I don't think it ever was. So I think it's just one of those songs that was just everywhere for a minute when it came out, and I just associate it with a certain time and a place. But man, what a great song. So the video, well, there's some leaves blowing around in it. Yeah, so the video is just the band like in a room, and obviously their girlfriends or some intern is standing in front of a giant fan with bags of dead leaves, shaking them into it. I seriously thought at one point that McNabb, he's trying to sing through all of this. He looks genuinely uncomfortable, like annoyed by the leaves, like he's spitting leaves out of his mouth while he's trying to lip sync this stuff. So it's kind of goofy, but it's also harmless as videos go. I will give video props for the whoever filmed it, deciding to highlight that guy playing the tom part, which really is one of the like infectious parts of this song, is that tom beat, and they show the guy banging on the tom doing it. I did dig a little bit into these guys, and I really didn't find anything else that I liked much at all. I mean, the other single, the Love is a Wonderful Color, it was all right, but it's nothing special, and the rest of it pretty much left me cold. I just didn't think anything of these of their other stuff at all. Just so one little fun fact, in the UK when this song was released, it was called Birds Fly, parentheses, Whisper to a Scream. In the U.S., it was called Whisper to a Scream, parentheses, Birds Fly. But either way, this is a fantastic early 80s pop jam. You can really do no better. And brought to you by decisive one-hit wonders, the Icicle Works.
Yeah, they've got 3 more albums than I would have guessed. How does a band write a song that good and not like have like maybe one or two other, like it's just amazing, and because they're not the only ones. I mean, we know that for a fact. This is a really good song. And this isn't just a good song. This is a really, really good song, and you just wonder, like, did they really not even have like one or two others, something close to that in them? Because it kind of blows my mind.
I couldn't find it. If they did, I couldn't find it. And they even have some covers, and I thought, well, maybe they're good at doing these covers. They're terrible. they do a cover of I think it was Hallelujah, one of those kind of iconic songs. They did a cover that was awful. Like, I made it a minute into it and turned it off. I don't know. Maybe they just struck gold with this song. It is so good.
Yeah. It's well written. They're obviously they play their instruments. Like, it's well produced. It's everything from an '80s song that you could possibly want. But yeah, they didn't seem like they were able to do it again. The title thing is interesting because I've heard the song probably 1,000 times. I mean, without exaggeration. I never really caught the birds. I mean, I know where the birds fly is. I was kind of listening for it, and I know it's in there. But you clearly want to title this song "Whisper to a Scream." Like, why you would ever even think to title it "Birds Fly"? I guess you could, like, throwing it in the parentheses, like in the U.S., is, I guess, a good compromise. But just you don't even need to bother. Like, this song clearly should be called "Whisper to a Scream."
Yeah, just call it "Whisper to a Scream" and call it a day. I mean, that's
like, why would you even take the risk of people confusing this with anything else?
Well, it's interesting you say that, because when I saw Icicle Works' "Birds Fly" on the list, I was like, well, I don't even know what that is. Yeah, I mean, and I'm pretty good with one-hit wonders, like, especially from this era. I know the one-hit wonders. Icicle Works was not a name that clicked in my brain at all, but "Whisper to a Scream," by God, did. I knew when I saw that's what this song was and how much I love this song.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the only other note I have is basically the same thing you did about the video, which is, like, if you watch the first 10, 15 seconds of the video, you got it. You don't
that's what it does.
Like, that's it. It doesn't go anywhere. If you think there's gonna be like a plot twist or the weather's gonna change, nope, it's windy, it's leafy. And that's about as far as it goes. But the lead singer does look genuinely like this was a bad idea.
Yeah, he's getting
just pummeled by
like
dead.
This was bad.
He's just getting pummeled by dead leaves that, like, are clearly being just tossed in the air by some schmo they got off the street, or possibly their girlfriends, like, into the fan. But so yeah, not the most creative video, but absolutely a classic '80s track from, like, the definition of a one-hit wonder. But man, when that one hit, whew, it's good. It's real good.
Yeah, we're 3 for 3 on all of us liking this song. I will play the contrarian a little bit in fact that I did really actually like this video. Even though, like you said, there's not much going on with it aside from them, the performance video. But the visuals of it with the light and shadow going on and the leaves flying around and creating those little flying shadows all over the place and all of it. I just thought it was cool. I really liked this video, even though, like you say, there's not just a whole lot going on to it. Or with it, I should say. But yeah, great song. I mean, and, Scotty, you said this one is not necessarily the kind of thing you normally like. It is exactly the kind of thing I normally like. I mean, this song is right up my alley. And being a big U2 fan, I have a soft place in my heart for big bombastic choruses. And this song absolutely has a big bombastic chorus that is just fabulous. Yeah, it is bizarre that these guys didn't do anything else after this, because this song is so incredibly good. And I kind of feel like, just doing a little reading on them, like you said, Scott, there's not a whole lot out there, but this guy Ian McNabb was obviously talented. They said one thing I read is that on their live shows he would sing the song with his right hand play an open tune guitar part and with his left hand play a keyboard part all at the same time. Like, I can't do one of those things. And this guy's doing all three of them on stage in front of, probably not thousands of people, but at least a few people out there watching him. So the guy was obviously an impressive musician. So, yeah, who knows why they weren't able to crank out anything else after this.
If there are fans of this band out there and they have other great songs, I apologize for what I said, but I couldn't find them. That's just it. I didn't listen to everything they ever put out, but I kind of listened to what were their top songs, and it just nothing grabbed me at all. Nothing. Certainly not on the level of this song.
Yeah, I didn't even check any of the other stuff out. I just listened to the song, but I've always known the song and really liked it. The one other thing I was going to say, though, that's interesting, we talk about them being kind of a one-hit wonder, is that a few years ago I bought this song off the iTunes Music Store, and you know how it always it populates the little window with the album artwork or the single artwork when when the song plays or whatever. For this one, it is a photograph of the white paper sleeve of a 7-inch single where you can see the whatever it is, Capitol Records or whatever label on there that just says Icicle Works, Whisper to a Scream. Like, there's literally no artwork whatsoever. It's just the plain Jane white paper sleeve on a 7-inch vinyl record. And that's the image that populates when you buy this off of iTunes. So, yeah, just not a whole lot of oomph behind it, I guess. The record company apparently didn't give it a lot of credence to put, artwork on it or anything. So I thought that was kind of funny too. But yeah, man, what
Seems
a great
weirdly
song.
Apropos for this song.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Why the record company didn't. I'm actually surprised that it didn't chart higher, because you said like around 20
20
in the UK.
Yeah.
Like in the US, that makes sense, but in the UK, I would have actually thought that this was like a top fiver, because
I would have thought so too.
It's just so good.
Yeah, I would have thought this was a monster hit in the UK and then a big one in the US, but it peaked out about the same spot in both places. So
I know I played it every week on retro radio back in the day. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
You were not going to get through that show without playing this song.
Yeah, this was really popular in the early 90s as a retro song, as you and I both are well aware of. As is the next song, actually, that we're going to talk about. Definitely a different vibe, but an equally classic song from that Keith's going to talk about.
Yeah, so this week I am going to talk about the song called 80s by the band Killing Joke. For me, I'm not a huge Killing Joke fan. I don't know a whole lot by these guys. I have one of their 90s albums. It's called Democracy. It's fine. The title track's really good, but the rest of it's pretty forgettable. And aside from that, this is really the only Killing Joke song that I know. And I don't have any idea where I came across this song. I was kind of trying to think about it, and I don't remember where I first heard it. I don't remember who introduced me to it. It just kind of seems to me like it's always been there. But man, it's one of my all-time favorite 80s tracks. I just absolutely love this song. And for me, the thing that really makes this song and makes it one of my favorites is the guitar part, the lead guitar part. I mean, there are just some songs out there that have such a cool guitar lick in them that you feel like you could listen to that guitar lick forever. And I'm thinking here about Smells Like Teen Spirit or More Than a Feeling or Welcome to the Jungle. I don't know that this song is necessarily on the level of some of those, maybe, but yeah, it's the guitar lick in the song. I could listen to that guitar part on loop forever. I absolutely love that guitar part. And so, yeah, for me, that's what really makes this song. But Killing Joke, English band, they were formed in 1979. They got 4 main members. They've had a lot of guys that came in and out, but the 4 main guys were Jazz Coleman. He's the singer and plays keyboards. Geordie Walker is the guitar player. Paul Ferguson on drums, and then Youth on bass. And Youth would go on after he was out of the band for a while. He came back at one point and has been in and out of it. They got another bass player named Paul Raven. He's the other main guy in the band. There's those 5 guys. When Youth was not there, Paul Raven was the bassist for the most part. But Youth you may have heard of. He also, after this, did a lot of production work too. So he's been around as both a producer and a musician for a long time. These guys came out of the post-punk scene in England, but really I wouldn't describe them necessarily as being post-punk. They definitely got a heavier feel to them, I think, than most of what I would think of as being post-punk. A little bit of industrial in there, a little metal, a little goth, kind of all rolled into one. But yeah, they're kind of considered to be a post-punk band, but I definitely think they're a little heavier than at least what I think of as being post-punk. And a lot of that has to do with Coleman's vocals. I mean, he has got a very aggressive, in-your-face, kind of yelled, raw singing style. And I wrote some of these down because I liked some of the descriptions of his voice and his vocals. One of them was he has savagely strident vocals. Okay, that sounds about right. One guy described it as being menacing. Another guy as having a terrifying growl for a voice. So if that gives you any insight into Coleman's voice, it is a major part of what they do. And I don't think Killing Joke would be Killing Joke without his vocals. And even though, like I said, I didn't really know a whole lot about this band. Like I said, I've known of them. I've known of this song for a long time. I was doing some reading, and these guys get name dropped by a ton of different bands. It's crazy. Metallica, Soundgarden, Jane's Addiction, Faith No More, Nirvana, 9 Inch Nails, My Bloody Valentine, all of these are bands that have, in interviews or whatever, name drop these guys as being influences. So these guys obviously have a lot bigger footprint than I kind of gave them credit for. This song, 80s, is on their 5th studio album. It's called Nighttime. Like I said, it's a real rocker, man, kind of a bludgeoning rocker with a heavy guitar in it, and Coleman's vocals really kind of, I don't want to say anti-80s screed, but just kind of talking about what life is like in the 80s. And the words push and struggle come up like dozens of times in this song. And it's got some cool lyrics in it, leaning toward just kind of the 80s vibe of the 80s. But my favorite one was in one of the verses, he says, "I've got the best, I'll take all I can get." That is the 80s right there. The unchecked greed, I've already got it, but I want everything else. That line right there is a great one in the song, and like almost sums up the 80s just by itself right there. So great song, and the lyrics are pretty cool. The video is also really cool. I actually really like this video too. It's basically a performance video, but you've got Jazz Coleman behind what appears, behind a lectern with a bunch of microphones on it, like he's giving a press conference or whatever. And there's an American flag draped over the lectern. There's a Soviet Union flag back behind him, and he's, gesticulating wildly and doing the whole dear leader giving a speech thing as he's singing into the array of microphones in front of him. So very cool video. It has a lot of interstitial footage from the 80s also cut in with it. You get Margaret Thatcher in there, Ronald Reagan, Brezhnev, the Pope at the time, the Ayatollah Khomeini, space shuttle launches, nuclear explosions, book burnings, all kinds of imagery from the 80s, both kind of the leaders and then other things that were going on in the 80s. Like obviously a space shuttle is not a bad thing, but you also get like a space shuttle launch, I should say, but you also get like a lot of like military footage and people shooting guns. And so, yeah, there's kind of some disturbing footage as well as stuff like with the leaders, world leaders at the time. So I just really liked this video. I liked everything about it. I liked the performance part of it with Coleman behind the lectern doing his dear leader bit, and I liked the interstitial imagery. I just thought it was a cool video. So that's largely it. The one other thing I will mention, and if you do any reading about this song, what you'll find out is that the Nirvana song, Come As You Are, essentially lifts the guitar part of this song and kind of reuses it in that song. And the Killing Joke guys were aware of that. They heard it, and so there's some conflicting reports of whether or not they actually ever sued Nirvana, or whether they just were kind of loud about not being happy about it. There are reports that there was a lawsuit filed, but if it did get filed, it never went anywhere because they never actually ended up getting any damages or anything from Nirvana. If you listen to the two songs, you'll hear it. I mean, it is not mysterious that Nirvana lifted that guitar part, but they apparently kind of, after Kurt Cobain died, they, I guess, just kind of dropped it, didn't pursue it any further. And in fact, Dave Grohl actually has played drums for these guys on one of their albums. So any animus there, but because of that, has been cleared up, and they're kind of, I guess, don't have a beef with Nirvana anymore. So, and I didn't write it down. I don't believe these guys are still active right now. They may be. I think they, well, I say that. I think that they haven't put anything new out in about 10 or 12 years. They may still be playing live. But the guitar player, Geordie Walker, passed away. And so I'm not sure 100% if they're still doing their thing or not. But if you haven't heard it, I absolutely 100% recommend 80s by Killing Joke. Go check it out. It is one of my all-time favorite 80s tracks.
So I mentioned before on Icicle Works that song really wasn't normally something that would be up my alley. Well, here's something that is directly up my alley. I mean, this has me written all over it. But this is another great example of one of those bands that you don't hear much about in like the mainstream music world or whatever, at least not here in the U.S. But man, you said it. You read any interview with any early 90s alternative band, I challenge you to find one that doesn't cite these guys as an influence almost immediately. You mentioned Soundgarden, Jane's Addiction, Ministry, Nine Inch Nails, all of my favorite bands from that era. And you don't even have to really say alternative bands, and you mentioned this as well, Metallica calls these guys an influence. So, and in fact, I saw that James Hetfield mentions this guy as like the biggest influence on his vocal style. So this is one of those bands that touched everybody else, but maybe never broke out into the mainstream. But I actually remember the first time I heard them was because of Metallica. Metallica put out an album, or an EP, I should say, about 1988 called Garage Days. It was like a 5-song EP of covers, and they're all really good. And the only song on there that I knew was the Misfits one that they covered. So I went and listened to the other 4. Well, they covered a song called The Wait by Killing Joke that I really, really liked. And that was the first time I remember hearing Killing Joke. So I really like this song. Like you said, Keith, it's got that 80s, British sort of post-punk sound, but it's definitely harder and faster and a little more angry than some of that stuff. Yeah. You can hear how these guys are going to influence 90s alternative and industrial moving forward. The video's fine. I liked it too. It's nothing too great. It kind of reminded me that I got to get more Killing Joke in my life. That was the one thing I took away from it. They're kind of one of those bands that because, maybe they aren't in the zeitgeist as much as they deserve to be, I kind of forget how much I like them until someone reminds me. And this certainly reminded me that, these guys are really just perfect band for me. So, and the other thing I wrote down was, man, I was 5 seconds into this song and wrote down, did they sue Nirvana? Because the Come As You Are riff just leaps out at you when this song starts. And then, yeah, it's faster and, not as down-tuned as maybe that, but man, it is the same riff. I'm assuming that maybe they just kind of got together and said, hey, sorry. And then, you guys are cool. We're cool. Let's just all let this go. That's the only reason I could think of that they wouldn't sue over that. Because, man, it's right there. It is the same riff.
Yeah, I think that's kind of exactly how that went, is that, they were angry about it. And maybe, I guess, like I said, there are conflicting reports. Did they actually file a lawsuit? Did they just talk about filing a lawsuit? Who knows? But I think once Kurt Cobain passed, that kind of was an all is forgiven kind of moment. And yeah, like I said, they have worked with Dave Grohl since then. But yeah, you're not going to miss it. If you've heard whichever song you heard first, when you hear the other one, you're going to realize that the guitar part is pretty much the exact same thing.
And it's a good one. Yeah, it is a nice riff. The guitar player, it's a shame that he's passed. He is just not at all what I thought the guitar player from Killing Joke would look like. I'll put it that way. Actually, all the members of the band, the lead singer is the only one that even remotely looks like I would have imagined. And he's not really in his like rock and roll outfit. He's more like, you were saying he's kind of playing the part of a politician. But he's, and as you said about his lyrics in the song in general, in the video, he is menacing. He is kind of scary to watch because he's playing the role really well. And I mean, it's kind of an angry song. So I mean, it totally makes sense. Like he's kind of in your face and not super happy about the situation. But yeah, I was really surprised. The rest of the band looked very new wavy, but the song is very much not, a new wave track. I did think it was interesting that being a British band that they had the US flag draped over the lectern and not like there's no reference to like a UK flag. There are references to like Margaret Thatcher and some other UK politicians that are thrown in there, but I did think it was interesting that they chose the US and USSR flags.
What was the other flag? There's a US flag and another flag, and then the Soviet flag is behind him. What's the second flag on the podium?
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
I
think there is. If I'm remembering right, there were two flags on the front of the podium. One, the U.S. flag, and I can't remember what the other one was. I would have guessed it was a Union Jack, but maybe it wasn't if you didn't see that.
I'd have to go back and watch that again because, I don't remember there being a second flag on the podium. And my take on
maybe
it was
there wasn't. Maybe I'm just imagining that. It's kind of just the way they were set. Like the American flag was kind of off to the left. Maybe there wasn't anything there.
But my take on it was that, especially as being a European or a British, person at the time, you're living in a world where you've got the big superpowers at the time, which was the Soviet Union and the U.S., and you're kind of at their mercy. If you're not, you're pretty much everybody in the industrialized world at that time was allied with one side or the other, but those folks kind of were out, hanging in the wind. You were at the whims of one of those two big superpowers at that time, and whatever they kind of wanted to do was kind of what you were going to do. And so that was my take on the flag thing, was that, one's behind him, one's in front of him, and he's trapped in between them. But I didn't see a third flag.
I just looked it up. I just pulled it up, and I'm 100% wrong. It is the American flag on the front of the podium and the Soviet flag behind him. So that's all it is. Yeah. I don't know. I guess it's because the American flag is so much bigger. I thought it was two flags, but
it's also cut into streamers, kind of, which is
it's kind of different looking. But I was incorrect.
Yeah, like I said, that was my take on it. Is just kind of caught between the two, and just like as everybody in the '80s was, you were between the rock and the hard place. It was either the U.S. or the Soviets at that time,
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. The UK had definitely lost a lot of its luster, a lot of its international power at that point. Compared to say 50, 60 years, previous. Yeah. Otherwise, I don't really have anything to disagree with or add to what you guys said. It's a great song. It's a very effective video. I think not much like Icicle Works in the fact that like Icicle Works is really to me kind of a boring video, but like it doesn't really change. Like it's shots of the band and then shots of the lead singer at the lectern kind of yelling the lyrics at you, and it doesn't really stray from that except for some of the, a little bit of the interstitial stuff. But I think super effective. And yeah, I feel like this was a song that I didn't appreciate as much. I wasn't aware of it like in 85. I think it came out in 85. Is that right? I wasn't really aware of it then. I didn't discover it till I got into college radio in the early 90s. And I like it a lot more now. Not that I didn't like it then, but I really appreciate it more now for what it is. It's a really great track.
You guys mentioned their look in the video. I wonder if, right after this is when, industrial and goth really starts to grow, and become more of a thing. I wonder if they leaned into that more as it went forward. They do look like a new wave band in this video, but their sound is definitely going to start, and from what you read, sounds like it was a major influence on what's going to come shortly after this. I wonder if they kind of leaned into the more industrial look more as they went on.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me. I did like Geordie Walker in this video wearing what appeared to be like the priest collar and black shirt with the sleeves cut off of it. I thought that was a cool look, but yeah, it would be interesting. I don't know what they did after that. So
yeah, I actually really like that look as well.
Yeah, that was cool.
So I don't know if you would consider Killing Joke 80s a one-hit wonder or not. Killing Joke is kind of a band that maybe kind of transcends the one-hit wonder thing because they're kind of like you guys were talking about. They're kind of more influential really than you realize. But this is the only song I knew from them, so they kind of fall in that category. Icicle works very clearly, like the definition of a one-hit wonder. The song that I picked is actually from a band that just has one song, so they are nothing but a one. They could be nothing other than.
They had no choice.
They had no choice. I guess it could have been a flop. It was either going to be a one-hit wonder or a one flop wonder. That's how that was going to go. So we're going to talk about in this little segment MARRS, Pump Up the Volume. And so this isn't even really a band. This is two bands put together, and the story is as follows. You have Colorbox, which is signed to 4AD Records, and they are kind of an 80s pop with a little dance vibe to them. They have a really great lead singer. A lot of their stuff is a little more like down-tempo, but danceable with like kind of a soul music lyrical bent to it, I guess you would say, or melodic bent to it. And then you have another band called Arcane that's a little more on the artsy side of dance music, who was signed to a very small label that they were not happy with. They actually reached out to 4AD and was like, hey, we'd kind of like to be on a better label, and that started like a little bit of a rumbling between the labels, but they offered Arcane the opportunity to work with Colorbox and collaborate on something. So you have these two bands who are kind of asked to collaborate on music. And it turns out that does not go very well. They don't really get along particularly well, or I don't know if it was personal or if it's just a collaboration thing, but it doesn't really work. So what they end up doing is they each create basically their own song. They pass it over to the other band to maybe, tweak a little bit or play with. And then they release it as like a double A-side single, I guess. Although what really happens is that Colorbox is the band that comes up with Pump Up the Volume, essentially. That really is the A-side, and Arcane comes up with a song called Anatina, which is the backside to that single, whether you want to consider it a double A-side or a B-side. If now listening to it, it's very clearly the B-side because it's not nearly as good. There's a reason that you've probably heard Pump Up the Volume and you probably have not heard Anatina. It's not great. They were more artsy. They were going for something different, and they absolutely did. I mean, it is, I would say, more complex by a long shot than Pump Up the Volume. It's got a lot more going on, but it's just not Pump Up the Volume. I mean, that Pump Up the Volume becomes one of Britain's most influential house music tracks of all time. It really starts. It doesn't start the house music trend. It does solidify house music, and it starts a trend towards sample heavy dance music that will kind of take over Britain and the US for like the rest of the late 80s and into the early 90s, before like acid house and trance and some other like genres start to kind of push it to the side. So there's really a subset of music that comes from those 5 or 6 years where it's just samples over big thick beats, and a lot of that's obviously a legal thing. Like these guys sampled, I think there's something like 25 samples in this track, believe it or not. They didn't clear it. They didn't pay for that. They had one issue going into it or once it's out, they have an issue with the producers. There's a group of producers that actually produced Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up, which is on the charts at the same time as Pump Up the Volume. They go after MARRS for this song, even though the sample they use is like heavily distorted, and one of the guys from MARRS says like they don't think that the other guys would have even known that they used the sample if they hadn't been blasting it in interviews and talking about it. Like they had been running their mouths about all these samples they were using, and this production group that was known as SAW it's the initials of the producers probably wouldn't have known, but they caught wind of it. And there's kind of this theory that the reason they went after MARRS was to try to keep them from taking over Never Gonna Give You Up on the charts, because they were actually kind of fighting for the top spot on the charts. The main sample, by the way, comes from an Eric B. and Rakim song. It's just a picture-perfect sample, the actual Pump Up the Volume, because the song itself drops out all the music and you just hear that Pump Up the Volume is like totally clean. So I'm surprised there aren't 20, 30 other tracks that use, actually there probably are 20 or 30 other tracks that use that sample.
It's been sampled a lot. I don't know if it's that many.
It does get sampled a lot because it's a nice clean sample, so of course it does. They would end up being on the same label as Eric B. and Rakim, so they actually kind of helped Eric B. and Rakim find a little bit of a new audience, and they end up doing them some good by using the sample. So there are multiple versions of this song. There are 5 like basic versions of the song, and then there are remixes and remixes on remixes that have come out since then. A lot of that has to do with some of the sample clearances, issues that they start to have. The US version is specifically very different from the UK version in my view. If you've heard the UK version and some of the dance versions, it's pretty stripped down. It's got that really great bass line. It's got the drums, obviously. It's got the Pump Up the Volume, and then a few other samples in it. The US version, which is the version that is linked to on YouTube and is the official US radio edit and the official video, is much busier. It's got like a lot of hip-hop samples in it that I really wasn't as familiar with because I had always played kind of the more dance clubby version. The reason for that is that the American version was actually released by Fourth and B-Way Records, which had a whole like roster of hip-hop artists signed to them, so they were able to provide all these samples to MARRS and be like, hey, if you want to kind of pump up the song, if you will, with more samples, we can basically give them to you, and they didn't have to go through like all the clearance bullshit. So the US version that you would hear if you watch the official video has a lot more like hip hop type stuff going on with it. It's to me it's a little too busy. I think the stripped down version is kind of the more iconic version of the song, but I did think that was interesting because as I was listening to it, I was like, God, this has a lot of samples that I don't remember in it, but that's why the US radio edit in particular has a lot going on. What do I think of the song? It's freaking awesome. I've loved this track from the day I heard it. I'm pretty sure I heard this the very first time I ever went to a dance club in beautiful Lubbock, Texas, walking into what I think was the Planet at the time. I think anybody that's involved with club culture knows that clubs change their name like every year and a half ish. That one, and sure this did. Club, and yeah, that one was no. Yeah. It was the Planet. It was MARRS. It was the Tunnel. I don't remember what it was after that. A24 something came in there.
Davilanth A212.
Davilanth A212. Thank you. That was it for a while. Like that, that's just the nature of clubs. But anyway, as a freshman in college, some friends of mine drugged me to a dance club for the first time. I really had just started to discover alternative music and dance music. I didn't know what to expect, but I distinctly remember hearing 2 songs that night. One was MARRS, Pump Up the Volume, and the other one was Front 242, Welcome to Paradise. Both very sample-heavy dance tracks. So I really fell in love with the idea of taking samples, not just of music, musical samples and hip-hop samples, but something like Welcome to Paradise, where they're sampling like preachers and evangelists and creating this kind of pastiche of religious overtones on top of this kind of, really aggressive industrial dance music. Like I just fell for that hook, line, and sinker right off the bat. Loved it, and have loved it ever since. And during my brief attempts to make dance music, that's the kind of dance music I made, was like sampling stuff because I loved it. To say it all comes back to this one track is reductive, but it almost all comes back to this one track. I mean, this track really launched that idea. of dance music and finding really cool samples and making that work. And it's a shame that you don't hear really any of that today. And it really did fall out of fashion by the mid 90s. You didn't get a lot of tracks like that compared to what you were getting in the late 80s, early 90s. But to me, it's the iconic sample heavy house music track. It's as classic of a dance track as it gets, and it's fantastic. Real quick, the video is non-remarkable. It's a lot of public domain astronaut stuff tossed in with some other like freeway footage, a little other, but it's basically like a bunch of NASA footage cut together. Nothing wrong with it. I'll watch NASA footage on YouTube just for fun. So seeing it over the top of one of my favorite dance tracks was great, but nothing remarkable about the video. You guys might have more to say about that, but the song to me is a 10 out of 10, no notes, fantastic dance track.
Yeah, great song. The funny thing about that was, I knew this was this song. I knew it was Pump Up the Volume, but it had been a while since I heard it, and I didn't listen to it until yesterday. And I've spent my entire week this week running around when I was thinking about the podcast with Pump Up the Jam going in my head instead. I had to listen to this song to kick that one out of my head so I could get the right song going. But yeah, man, great club track. This is another one, kind of like the Killing Joke song. I haven't been aware of the song for a long time, but I don't have any idea where I first heard it. But yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add on this because I think you covered it all pretty well. I did like the video. I thought the astronaut footage and the astronaut training footage and all that stuff going on with the beats in the background was really cool. And there was one particular moment I liked, and I'd have to look for it because it's real brief, but it looked to me like they took footage of like somebody getting shot out of an ejector seat and ran it backwards, because there's one brief little moment where it looked like there was this open cockpit and suddenly this dude comes flying feet first into it. So I don't know if
that was
pulled off a really cool move or if that was some footage run backwards or what. But I really did like that part of the video. But yeah, man. Thinking about that time and the kind of dance tracks that were around back then, and doing a little reading on this. I didn't have time to do much reading on it. I did see some of the other tracks that apparently were inspired by this, one of which was S Express, theme from S Express, which I probably haven't heard in 35 years or more. But the minute I saw that, I was like, S Express, I remember that one. I love those guys. So, this one, obviously really influential and had a big impact on what was going on in the day. But I don't know that anybody ever topped it. This was probably the apotheosis of that particular genre of, clubby dance music with all the samples thrown over the top of it. I don't know that you're going to get any better than this particular song.
Yeah, so I agree wholeheartedly. This is, one of those iconic dance tracks or whatever. But where I've kind of been wrestling with it for the last couple of days is the timeline of when it became popular versus when it was on 120 minutes versus like the time you're talking about, Michael, because like you're talking about hearing it at a club in Lubbock, when you were in college. You're younger than me. I remember hearing this song when I was in high school, which would have been years before that. And it was all over the radio, at least in San Antonio, Texas, in the mid to late 80s. This song was all over the top 40 radio charts. So I was trying to kind of place like when it became a mainstream hit versus, kind of the eternal question, why was 120 minutes playing this? Like and maybe I'm just cloudy on when it went from being an alternative song or a kind of a new thing into the mainstream. Maybe I'm just, those details are vague to me or whatever. But that's kind of what I've been wrestling with. The other thing I'll mention about the song is, from a club perspective, is this song is around 115 beats per minute, which is in that wonderful area between how do I get from the slow songs to the faster songs. And this is one of those perfect transition songs. So that's nerdy stuff for the DJs out there. But when you needed a song to get you from the slower stuff into the faster stuff you were going to do, this was the perfect song to do it with. So it got played a ton, at least in the clubs I DJ'd in.
Especially because it had like a dropout where you could actually just bump the speed all the way. So like it would come back a little faster, but it was like you just could instantly jump up about 5 to 6 BPM.
Right. It's almost like they did that on purpose because they knew they would get more spins if it was fun for DJs to mess with, And they were probably DJs themselves, or at least, in that world. But the video, like you said, this is get me some astronaut B-roll footage. That's really all it is, but it's kind of fun. It fits the song in a weird way. I mean, you wouldn't hear this song and think astronauts, but it does kind of work as a collage of images to go with this song. I thought it worked pretty good. So this is a great song, an iconic song. I'm really curious to kind of dive into like when it came out versus when it became a mainstream radio hit versus when it became a club staple. Like that timeline just gets real cloudy for me. But but there's nothing bad to say about this song. It's an absolute jam, and it's certainly was ahead of its time, I think, and kind of kickstarted something that would become a thing and is still a thing. So kudos to him for that.
Well, to your point, I found this really interesting, and I probably should have brought this up initially. This song was released on August 3rd of 1987. We are doing the playlist from October of 1987. This song had only been out 2 months when.
So it's brand new at this point.
Yeah, it has not taken off at this point. My understanding is that this was a slow burn in terms of radio play and chart play. Now, it was, and this is a trick that a lot of record labels used to do back in the day, and I don't know if it affected things one way or the other. It was released as a white label initially, and if you're not in the know as like a club DJ, club white label releases just have the name of the song. They don't have the band, they don't have the record label. They get put out to try to start to get people interested in a track, and they try to get DJs to play it without being biased by what record label or what band it is, because a lot of DJs get really attached to like certain record labels, or on the flip side of that, they get really jaded against certain record labels or maybe a certain artist.
Guilty.
Certainly, like if Colorbox had released this under Colorbox, probably wouldn't have done as well. But nobody knew who MARRS was. I don't know, if that played into it. 4AD wasn't necessarily known as a dance music, powerhouse, and never has been. So I don't know if that played into it, but it was picked up by 120 Minutes really fast. That's the first thing I will say. Like I don't know who picked it up and how they knew that it was going to be something worth playing. So
that's fair. That makes it make sense, because MTV picks up on this new style of music being done outside of the U.S. That's the perfect thing for 120 Minutes at this moment in time. I was trying to think about when I would have heard it. I was definitely in high school, and I want to say I was probably like a junior. So that would have been 88 when it was being played on mainstream radio. And San Antonio, Texas is not a major market. So if they were playing it on mainstream radio there, then LA was playing the crap out of it. And probably before that. So that makes the timeline make a little more sense, that, MTV jumped on this when it was fresh, and then it sort of slow burned into a top 40 hit later on.
Which is probably a theme we're going to see more.
Yeah, I was going to say, we've seen that before, actually, with bands that kind of, started off on 120 Minutes and then kind of graduated out of that. So, it would happen for sure. And then, again, it even happened the other way, as I think we'll see when we keep going on, that sometimes a band would graduate out of 120 Minutes, get big, and then slide back down into the 120 Minutes range again after their popularity kind of faded. So... this band obviously only had the one song. They didn't have the chance to go, back up and then down the ladder, but it did happen a lot.
They can say that 100% of their output was a big hit, though.
That's true. They can, yeah. They had the batting average was very, very good.
Yes, it was.
We've never put out a song that wasn't a big hit.
Now we're going to talk about a band that did not break out of 120 Minutes, I don't think. I'm reasonably sure these bands have surprised me. I've learned things about some of these mystery bands that I would not have expected. I'm going to go out on a limb, and Scott can tell us what he's learned in his research, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this band did not really break out after their appearance on 120 Minutes.
That is a fair statement. So just a little peek behind the curtain. So when I go about choosing my mystery song when it's my turn, there is no magic formula. The only criteria is that none of us have heard it before, or heard of the band or the song. So usually I just go with the coolest sounding band name, or a song title that piques my interest, or, as in the case with this song, both. So this week we chose the band is The Leather Nun, or Leather Nun, depending on where you look it up, and the song is called I Can Smell Your Thoughts. This is a Swedish band. They form around 1978. They start out as sort of a garage rock thing. Think like Velvet Underground, they call it influence. And then they morph into sort of a goth rock / industrial thing, which is about where I think this song lands. And then they eventually morph into what they call pop rock. You know, I know the lead singer from The Cult, whose name I forget, Ian whatever, he claims to be a fan of these guys. I think their later stuff, that's where they're going, is sort of like that poppy metal sound. But this, I think, falls in that middle thing, sort of the goth industrial thing. They really only have one core member. The guy's name is Jonas Almquist. He's the rest of the band is sort of just whoever he wants to work with at the time. When they first start out, the other three guys kind of stay the same for a few years. But if you look, like, you know, the rotating band members is kind of a thing. And he's the only listed current member of the band. So it's been really on and off project over the years, but Leather Nun is still out there playing and touring and putting out an album every once in a while. I think their last one was in 2015, but, you know, fairly recently they had some output. So early on, this band gains a little notoriety for having been fairly controversial live shows. They show hardcore gay porn behind them, and they have strippers on stage and stuff like that. And they do have a pretty impressive roster of fans, like Mudhoney calls them an influence, Butthole Surfers claims to like them. So if I had read all of that first, I probably would have dove on top of my laptop to listen to these guys. You know, all this is right up my alley. Early industrial, controversial live shows, influenced some of my favorite bands. But man, this just did nothing for me. I just was left ice cold by the song and the video. I think the song is onto something. It's got a catchy guitar riff, and I kind of like the vocals. But it seems like it's wanting to go somewhere that it just never goes. It's like the whole song is the opening verse, and it never gets to a chorus, it never gets to a bridge. It just kind of is very monotonous and repetitive. And kind of the same thing with the video. I mean, it's a vibe video, but it's almost indecipherable. It's very black. A lot of grainy footage. I mean, I like videos like this normally, but this one's just, it's too dark, and there's not enough interesting imagery in it to really make it anything. I did notice, however, when I went to listen to the song a second time, trying to give it another chance, I pulled it up on Apple Music. So you know how they list like top songs, and they have like all the most clicked songs basically for any given band. And then at the bottom is all their albums just kind of in a row, where, you know, the songs nobody ever clicks on. Well, that's where you find this one. So I went and dug it a little deeper. I'm happy to say that I kind of do like these guys. They're exactly as described, you know, the early goth sort of industrial thing. They're pretty good at it. It's just this particular song didn't work for me at all. So I would say that if the band I described sounds interesting to you as it did to me, check these guys out. I just think you can probably skip this song. That you can do a whole lot better. I'll point you to, they did a cover of ABBA's Gimme, Gimme, Gimme. That's a delight. So that is the wonderfully named Leather Nun and their cleverly titled song, I Can Hear Your Thoughts. And that was an absolute disappointment for me. So it did lead me to some interesting stuff, but this song just was kind of a giant meh, you know.
Small correction: it is I can smell your thoughts.
I'm sorry, I can smell your thoughts,
which is 10 times funnier.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's why. Yeah, that's a huge typo on my part. That makes it way better.
It's so funny. You got it right the first time, but I just want to correct that because it's that title deserves to be repeated as often as possible. I can smell
your thoughts.
You described it pretty well in terms of like, is there a chorus to the song? I'm not sure that there is. Is it going to go anywhere? No, it is not. It's definitely not. I will say, if you are a fan of Interpol and you want to hear like an album track, like you're thinking, man, I don't have enough Interpol music in my life. I wish someone would just make like a kind of a subpar, just toss off B-side Interpol track. This is that. If you told me this was Interpol, I'd have believed it. I honestly would have.
Yeah, that's a really fair comparison. I didn't think of that.
Yeah, I mean, that was I got the cult also, but Interpol 100%. I was like, this sounds like a not great Interpol track. Not least of which because it sounds a little ahead of its time. The production is solid, so like it sounds like it could sit right next to a modern day Interpol or other track and fit right in. It's just not a particularly good one, you know, in terms of like a hook or. Again, just the song kind of taking you on a journey. It doesn't really do that, you know, and that's a shame.
It feels like it wants to go somewhere and it doesn't go anywhere.
I had high hopes when it started. The first 60 to 70, 80 seconds of it, I was like, okay, this is about to blow my mind. Like
exactly
this is gonna blow
the same.
my doors off.
I was like, this is okay. This is cool. And then about a minute and a half in, I'm like, wait a minute. This isn't going anywhere.
and it continues to not go anywhere, unfortunately. Yeah. The video is kind of difficult to watch after a while. It's very like 10 frames per second of just kind of black and white, oversaturated, overexposed stuff. You never really quite see the band at the end. You kind of see them from behind the drummer, so you see their backs, and they kind of come around to the side for a minute, because I was really curious what they look like and what the band, but you never really get there. But that's the most cohesive part of the video. The rest of it just is really almost difficult to watch, because it's just very slow and flashy.
And that imagery is nothing. It's like the Mercedes logo and like a Deutsche Bank logo. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
It means nothing.
I was intrigued enough to dig in a little deeper, and I went to Apple Music and figured out where they were, and because I wanted to hear the song not on YouTube because the production is so good. I was like, I really want to hear this like fully produced, or a better version of it to really hear the production, because it sounded great, and it does sound great. And then I found the ABBA cover. I will say I do disagree that it's a good cover of the ABBA song.
I love that.
The reason I say that is because I feel like they underplay the things that make that song great. He takes the melody out of the chorus.
You are right. Like Erasure's cover of it is much better. What I like about it, it sounds like a while back we talked about 1,000 Homo DJs and their cover of Supernaut. Their cover of Gimme 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 is if 1,000 Homo DJs did it. It's the Al Jorgensen industrial cover of Gimme Gimme Gimme, and I liked it on that level. But you're right, it doesn't nail the original song at all. But
I think if I didn't love the original so much, I don't think I would have been as upset by it. But just by way of explanation, he monotones the chorus, which the chorus is the chorus. They kind of totally leave out the amazing keyboard part after the chorus, that everybody knows that's like, that's iconic, and they really downplay that to the point where you don't even really hear it. And they don't really hit the really good staccato when they come into the verses on the like 12:30. Like that's such a just bap bap bap, and it's ABBA. I'm saying bap 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 about an ABBA song, but it does, like, all those things hit, and they kind of smooth all of those elements out. So I feel like the song loses what makes that song great. Besides that, though, it is kind of it's kind of fun to hear that song done in a different way, because Erasure played it, pretty much straight across the plate, and so as much as I love the Erasure covers, it's not like they're necessarily bringing anything new to the table, whereas these guys absolutely are. But I do think they left out the things that I think really make the song great, and I think it would have been better if they had left them in. But that said, I didn't go any deeper, and now I'm kind of curious after hearing you talk about that. Maybe I should listen to some of their other stuff, because this song, it's not a bad song, but it really, going back to the song we're talking about, not Gimme Gimme Gimme. It doesn't really go anywhere, and it makes you feel like there should be more behind it, that there's something that should be coming that never does, and that's always a bad thing when you listen to a song. But yeah, I may dip my toe in a little bit more, because they've intrigued me at least enough for that. So that's something.
There's some good stuff out there.
Yeah, you guys may be able to smell my thoughts on this song, but I think I liked it better than both of you guys did.
I almost did you can't see me right now, but I almost spit water all over my laptop. So everybody at home, give Keith credit for an almost spit take there.
I did. I thought I didn't. The vocals weren't anything. They didn't really care much about the vocals at all. But I liked the music of the song. I just thought it was just a nice, good guitar groove. And you're right, it doesn't really go anywhere, but it's good enough to my mind. It's good enough that it carried itself throughout. So yeah, this is not something I'm going to run out and go buy or anything. But I think I did like it more than you guys did, and I also liked the video apparently more than you guys did. Very vibey. You're absolutely right about that. I mean, there's almost nothing you can really latch onto. But for me, I don't know, just all the black and white imagery, and the moving lights and the weird camera angles. And there's the one part where suddenly the camera shoots up and it's, focusing on the little angel flying around in the sky. And I don't know. I liked it. I liked the black and white vibey imagery of it, along with the kind of droney guitar. The whole thing just kind of worked for me. But I do agree that it's, this is not a song that's going to like go to number one on the charts or anything, or that everybody should run out and get a copy of right immediately. It's not that kind of a song, but I did like it, and I don't know that this is a band that I'm going to want to check out a whole lot more of, but this particular song, worked for me. I thought it was pretty good.
I mean, they get points for the name alone,
for sure,
right. And
Well, and I would say, Keith, honestly, if you liked this song, I think you will maybe really like some of their other stuff. I mean, it's all kind of this, at least at this, this era of it, it's all kind of this, but it's all just a little better in that, the songs have choruses and they build a little more than this one does. This one just seemed kind of drony to me. And like I said, I kept wanting it to do something that it just never did, but then,
poking it with a stick.
Do
something. Song.
Get to the other part. But yeah, I mean, but you're right. It has a good riff, and all
that's
that,
exactly
all
what
that's
I'm saying.
there.
I think what there is of it works really well. But you're right. It could have been fleshed out. Probably, but yeah, just for the droney guitars, I liked that.
All right, folks. I'm going to say 3 one-hit wonders, which we didn't intend to do, but I'm going to go ahead and call Killing Joke a one-hit. Like, we really accidentally hit on 3 one-hit wonders this time, but all good. So I mean, Icicle Works is. I'm struggling because I'm going to say that's my favorite of the songs we talked about in this episode, but I'm not. I love Pump Up the Volume, and I really love 80s. They're all 3 really good tracks. If you're not familiar with them, they are all 3 a little more underground and a little maybe lesser known than some of the other stuff we have and will talk about in the future. So this might be one of those where people are out there like, oh, I really haven't listened to them. All 3 worth checking out. Leather Nun, I mean, sure, why not if you've got the extra time? I'm not going to say go out of your way, but I mean,
give them a try.
If you got a minute, why not check it out? That's it, folks. October of 1987 is in the books. We're going through MTV's 120 Minutes. We'll come back next week or 2 weeks with November of 87. Don't forget to check out also 120minutes.org. They're the ones who have compiled all these playlists from 120 Minutes. They've been doing it for years, and we really appreciate that because it saved us a ton of time because we're able to just go in and kind of check out the playlist and pick our songs. So shout out to them, and thank you for the hard work that you guys are doing over there. Thanks to Keith Porterfield, Scott Mobley for sitting in with me on this episode, and we will see you next time for November of 1987 on 120 Months.